Hey, what's up guys? This is Oakley, and again, back in Medieval 2. I'm having a ton of fun in this. I hope you guys can come join me and play some Medieval 2. It's now being hosted multiplayer-wise on Steam, so it's definitely more available. Anyways, I'm going to be playing as Sicily, so I have access to these Norman Knights, which are incredibly powerful. My opponent, I'm going to be playing a series of 3 battles against him. So my deployment, I always like to split up my units, so I have armored sergeants at the front, dismounted Norman Knights here, and then I have archers hidden on the left, and archers on the right backed up by, again, armored sergeants, and I have Norman Knights here, and some Norman Knights there, and also one more Norman Knight unit here. I believe the rules for this battle was max 4 cav, so I went with less, and I was anticipating drawing my opponent over here sort of into this combat by exposing my archers, my armored sergeants. He would swarm them, and then I would countercharge with my Norman Knights. However, take a look at what we can see deploying from my opponent's lines is I forgot to restrict the rules in terms of artillery. So here he comes rolling out with, what is this? No, at least it's just 2 catapult units. So he is going to start deploying, and you can see me start to panic. I'm pulling my units back, and actually the armored sergeants up here, thank goodness, are actually hidden. So my opponent's not going to be able to kill them quite yet. My archers in the forest start shooting at his own men. My opponent is going to charge forward with all of his crossbowmen, and he has 1 armored sergeant to try and back that up. In the back, he's staying a little bit cautious. He has spearmen, armored sergeants, and then basically keeping the melee cav back, melee infantry back here, and then his melee cav is going to be swooping around to the left. You see some movement on my part. And basically what I decide to do is he's going to keep attacking me with these catapults. So what I figured is you might as well just charge. When this is happening, there's no point giving your opponent the advantage, especially seeing as how he's strung himself out. You can see just how all his melee troops are, whoa, and my opponent was getting super, yeah, a little bit, I don't know how to put this, but not very smart with his catapults. He kind of let them fire upon each other, and that caused a lot of issues for him. He already lost one, so he's doing a lot of the busy work for me. But like I was saying, he's kind of sent too many of his skirmishers up here with not enough support, and so I'm going to decide to just all-out charge and rush, because he's invested so many units, so much money into those catapult and range units that I know I can take that. He did land a couple lucky strikes against my archers. I lost half my unit, but that's the price I pay. And at least it distracted that. He didn't actually get to shoot my men. Thank God my armored sergeants were in the cover that you were seeing here, and it's going to allow them to get this quick ambush on my opponent. So I basically, yeah, forced all of his guys to fall back. He's going to countercharge with some of his units. It's going to force the rest of his men to charge forward, try and plug the gap. So I will take this happily. I'm engaging with one of my units. Don't want to overcommit too many. So you can see me just holding enough here, bringing in the rest of my troops. I'm going to swarm around the flanks. When this is happening, don't just commit everything to the center of the battlefield like my opponent is doing. Make sure you spread out your forces. So I'm forcing him to waste all his charges on one unit, and I'm holding back everywhere else, and then sending my guys around the flanks. So here he goes. He's going to charge in with his dismounted feudal knights, and that's where I'm going to decide to charge in with my own dismounted Norman knights. You want to fight sort of fire with fire, and so I'm going to send in some spears to hold that up, but mostly I'm going to be sending in my swords to deal with his swords. So you want to make sure in this game especially to match up appropriate units against other appropriate units. So for example here he left some of his knights idle, so that's where you want to send in obviously spearmen. Over in the center he's got a combination of spearmen, swordsmen, and cav, so that's where I want to send also spearmen, swordsmen, and cav. My own Norman knights were able to get the drop on my opponent's general, so I'm getting some kills there. And I'm withholding some units on that flank. And I was able to knock out his general that you can see there. But like I was saying, on this flank, I'm not committing too many of my forces. I'm just, I'm seeing where the balance of power is. I'm basically seeing that I'm winning in the back, winning on this flank, and I'm holding my own in the center. So no need to throw my cavalry in the center. I'm just going to go ahead and allow that balance to hold and just keep pushing around the side. Meanwhile, my archers are going to be targeting some of his more vulnerable units, so these guys are shooting into the flank here. Those archers are shooting into this blob here. I decided to double charge into this area right here. My opponent kind of had this big square going, so I needed to break it up. Part of his square is going to be held just by some crossbowmen, so I'm going to get an awesome charge right into the back of those guys, start killing a lot of them, and then pull out and decide to cycle charge. Over here, this double cav strike is going to be enough to start cracking this box that he had. And some of his catapults, however, are going to start doing a decent amount of damage. However, I moved out just at the last moment. I'm going to decide to just obliterate this front, congregate all my cavalry, and now, because I didn't engage from the front with my cav, it allows me to do this. This is way more effective than charging from the front, so always when you're playing this type of game, make sure you use your forces to their most effective. So cavalry are good for mobility, throw them around the side, you know, and if your opponent has a good position, decide where his weakness is and strike decisively there. So that allowed me to basically in one fell swoop just crack his guys. Also, another thing to keep in mind is, you know how he had these catapults and he had a missile advantage? That's when you have to press your advantage in infantry and kind of charge and strike. But don't charge needlessly up the center, do as I did, and go around the flanks. So here's my opponent right here. We're going to be playing 3 battles, so I'll post those in quick succession. See you guys in the next one. Thanks so much. Hey, what's up guys? So we're going to be in the second battle against that opponent that I played in the last round, obviously. So we're playing 3 battles, and this time I decided to choose England, kind of to switch up my strategy. So in the last game I was Sicily. I focused a lot on an infantry rush, so now I'm going to be doing more of a, well, choosing England, still infantry, but I wanted to focus a bit more on ranged units. So kind of a cool thing with England is they do have some of these cheap Welsh units. So 2 of these Welsh spearmen followed up by Irish kerns. So these are skirmishers. Really cool thing about this, well, first off, it's kind of like in Braveheart where Longshanks has the Irish and Welsh and other troops that he kind of uses as fodder. That's kind of how I'm going to use these guys. But then England also has some of these really good, awesome archers that I decided to use. So kind of these fodder units backed up by these high precision and high damage guys in the back. My main core is going to be 2 of these armored sergeants, 2 peasant archers, and a lot of these dismounted knights, so 5 of those. Then 1 levy spearman on the left, 2 of these feudal knights, and then mailed knights up in the front. I like positioning those guys just to taunt my opponent and draw him in, and then just start poking and probing around the sides. My opponent is going to choose France, so kind of a classic matchup. As France, he's going to go more heavy cav. Wow, let's watch this move out. So here he is pushing forward. Again, the rules for this one were 4 cav max, but he went for a huge build of these feudal knights. I think I'd choose, yeah, I have 2 feudal knights, but then I also have mailed knights, so I decided to go for 2 strong ones and then 2 cheaper ones. He's going to be sending all of those guys on the right flank, and he's going to be mounting a big assault in the front. He decided to go basically all cav and then all infantry. I don't think he has any skirmishers, so he learned from that last battle not to bring too many skirmishers. And we kind of switch roles, I guess. And he has these religious fanatics that he's going to be throwing in. Pretty good attack, but not good armor. But they hold up well, and they have, as fanatics, pretty good amount of morale. Anyways, let's pause this. So basically what's going on. So like I was saying, I chose these really cheap units here that could hold their own. And I put my good archers behind them. So you can see this plan is working very, very well. The entirety of his army is being drawn towards these fodder units. At the same time, I can pick off his guys at will. I'm selecting the guys I want to take out first, so I'm basically combining fire on these units. And then over on this side, I have basically my archers who decide to shoot at his cavalry, who are pulling up on this front. I decided to try and weaken his charge, so I was able to knock out a pretty good amount of them on the charge. He's doing what you should be doing, which is moving in with these armored sergeants. However, he's getting too far ahead of them. That's a problem that he had. He should have just stuck with those guys, and then he could have really destroyed my flank. You can see the positioning of my cavalry as well. I don't have them out here. That would be too exposed. I knew my opponent would have the cavalry advantage as France, so I just pulled them in here. And you can see they have the cover of these spearmen on the flank that can come and help turn that tide. But I'm also going to be redeploying this force to face him, but this is the status of the battle thus far. He's going to charge in against my guys. My mailed knights are going to soak up, again, using my sort of medium cavalry to absorb 3 units worth of charge, and then coming in with my own units and counter-charging. I'm also going to be sending, as I said, my levy spearmen to help even up that fight. I'm just keeping his guys at bay. Let's watch this. Again, as I said, I'm going to absorb them on these really cheap units. He's sending all his dismounted feudal knights into the fray. Those guys are going to chop through my men, but at the same time I have these Irish kerns who have Basically, they're like javelin men, and they're going to throw these armor-piercing spears into these guys. So that's going to allow me to do a lot of damage. I also have some of these mailed knights on the side, just holding my opponent back. He has these guys who are intending to hold my cavalry back. However, because these, again, I chose medium cav. So medium cav, basically keeping 2 sergeant spearmen out of the fight is definitely worth it for me. So that's the advantage you have of not going all out on cav. You can pose a threat without spending too much money. And he's kind of, again, blobbing. He's going to send in his fanatics to help just chew through my line, which is good. And I'm going to kind of piecemeal send in some guys to support. And here are some of my Sherwood archers, very strong units. They're going to be picking apart his line here. Let's put this on pause again. I'm going to decide to just keep these guys out of the fight. I'm going to start committing more and more. My main line here of armored sergeants is going to stay steady, and I'm just keeping these guys out of the fight, keeping them fresh. Over on this side, my opponent has come in with his armored sergeants. However, I'm sending in my dismounted feudal knights. These guys are swordsmen, so they're going to be able to counter his spears. So I have cav here, my opponent has cav, they kind of cancel. I send in my own spears to deal with his cav. He's going to send in his own spears, but I have sort of the last the end of the rock paper scissors. So I'm gonna have come out on top. Here I come in with my rock against his scissors. So I have just the right unit composition, a good variety to be able to deal with that. And I send in some of my feudal knights. Again, he's not getting the best charges on these guys, so I'm able to hold out longer than I should be. And I'm just going to keep reinforcing with my guys, pulling out with these cav when I don't need to, and allowing my infantry to sort of deal with that fight. And then I'm going to send these guys around here to help even up this battle. Over in the front, my cav basically charged in through the rear. So my Welsh spearmen are still alive, mostly because I came in with these cavalry from the back. I'm going to be doing, again, what I did in the last battle, which is disposing of his main infantry body with my cavalry. So I was able to hold these guys back. Yeah, they're going to chew through my line in no time, but my cav come in the last moment. And these cavalry strikes in the back are really, really devastating. Just the way the morale works for units, it's going to obliterate at least this corner of his morale. Sherwood archers are still here, still kicking, and they're going to be getting some shots against his men. And my spearmen here, unmolested, doing a lot of damage in terms of armor piercing. And I've reformed 2 of these archer units, and they're going to be firing into the fray here. So he has a lot of guys really chewing through my men, and he should be able to hold out. However, the problem is over here, basically I was able to turn the tide because I dispatched some of my guys instead of sending them all to this front. I knew it would be overkill to have too many units, so I sent them over here, and that's allowing me to basically even up this fight. And there we go, win the cavalry fight. Even though he had more cav, better cav than me, I was able to win this battle because I had reinforcements. So here we go. This is going to allow me to, keep holding here. And then hopefully with these cavalry units come in and charge to the back. So repeated strikes, and it's going to go right into his weaker units, the fanatics in the back. Combine that with the killing of his general. That's going to basically start wavering all of his men. So you can see that's going to allow me to just collapse his entire front. Yeah, he'll charge in through here with his sergeant spearmen, but my guys have been alive long enough to just do, a lot of damage. And look at that, these skirmishers doing a lot of damage, doing what they do. So this strategy worked really well for me, and this is how I'd recommend using England. Kind of bottling up and having this disposable force on one flank, allowing your archers to really do their damage, and then using your cavalry judiciously and sending in the appropriate number of spearmen. And when your opponent reinforced with his own spearmen, have some feudal knights, dismounted guys with swords to win that fight. So you can see how the battle turned out. So let's go into the third battle. I hope you guys are learning a lot from these. See you in the next one. Hey guys, this is going to be the third battle, again against the same opponent. So before we started this battle, previously all the rules had been basically limiting cavalry to 4. My opponent was starting to get frustrated. He's like, usually people limit it to 6 cav. So I was like, okay, let's make that the rule. So just because, a little bit of psychology, I knew, of course, if he's asking for that, he's going to want to bring those 6 cav. I think, and he also requested a flat map. So I think he thought, I was kind of not choosing the right maps for the battle, and I was restricting his ability to play fairly. So I decided, let's go ahead and give him exactly what he wants, but let's counter what I know he's going to do. So I knew I was going to have to counter cav. So what I did is I decided to choose Venice. I took this Corosio standard, put it right in the middle. This is basically a rallying point. It gives your guys really good morale, and it's staffed by these really strong units. So basically what I'm doing is building a turtle, in essence, with a shell made of spears. So Italian spearmen, cheap guys, Then armored sergeants, Italian spear militia over there. In the core of this, I've put dismounted feudal knights right in the center, and then I've put 3 of these peasant crossbowmen, and then 2 of these cavalry militia, again going with the medium grade cav in the back. So this is going to be a huge core to ward off cavalry, and this will allow me to hold off against any strike, so that's my main move. And then these 2 guys to remain versatile and hold off my opponent's cav, and also deal with skirmishers if need be. Over on this flank, I've put my 3 cavalry units. However, hidden inside of here, what I've done is I've put peasant crossbowmen and sergeant spearmen. So I'm not sure my opponent noticed that. It doesn't seem like he did. So you can see here, yep, he did exactly what I knew he would do, which is invest heavily in cavalry. And he brought some of these genites, and these guys are skirmisher calves. So he's going to send these guys out, hoping to, you know, pester and deal with my guys and draw them into this this huge swath of cavalry. And over here, he's going to have 3 of these spear militia, 4 peasant crossbowmen, 4 dismounted knights, and then 3 javelin men. So this is a pretty good build. He's layering his forces, and we'll see how that, you know, fares against my guys here. I'm going to hold them steady, and at this point, I'm going to basically draw out my cav and show my hand. So I'm kind of pulling off the screen, and here is what he's forced to deal with. He didn't quite expect this. Some peasant crossbowmen. So I'm going to get some initial shots against him and start forcing his guys back. I don't think he quite expected that. So a nice little bit of element of surprise, and hopefully a tactic that you guys could use. I wasn't able to get too many kills, but I did damage and chip away at his health and actually scare him. And it's going to force him to commit more guys over here. I decide to send forward the turtle. You'll see me push this guy. Actually, he already moved. He used to be back here. But I'm going to continue sort of forcing him forward. My opponent is he's going to crack this turtle by sending forward his peasant crossbowmen. So he has 4 of those guys. So in the face of this, you got to analyze what's going on in your battle. Basically, my opponent has the cavalry advantage. He has the skirmisher advantage. So what do you do? Well, I could outright retreat, but I know this is basically an unbeatable blob. And what I did with this blob is I actually put my militia units up front. So these are going to be the first guys who get targeted by my opponent. I'm fine with these guys getting chewed up by enemy crossbowmen. These guys are basically throwaways. So that's kind of what you build into your force, is have meat shields. So he can go ahead and he can throw these 4 crossbowmen against 2 of my guys. That's fine. And then what I'll do is I'll decide to have my own crossbowmen to return fire, hopefully even up that fight, and then also deploy some cavalry to force him back if he's starting to get the advantage. And I'm just going to hold these guys here and slowly push this block forward. They're going to be forcing his cav back. He could try and swarm this, but if he does so, he's going to deal with, you know, initial losses to the crossbowmen, secondary losses once he's engaged to my sergeant spearmen, and then, you know, a third wave of casualties when these guys charge in the back. So if you're dealing with cavalry superiority for your opponent, what I would do is move up with some crossbowmen and spearmen, and then keep your cavalry back as support and just keep forcing him back until you can, you know, engage with the other flank. So I hope this starts to get you addressed to sort of the thinking you need to have in Medieval 2, and of course this will apply to other Total War games. But like I was saying, my opponent is going to charge forward with his main blob. He's keeping these guys reinforced with spear militia, so that's good. It's going to prevent me from charging with my cav. I'm going to go ahead and sort of threaten that, pushing these guys forward and kind of feint that I'm going to be trying to engage with his men. I'm charging forward on this flank, just trying to draw him out. This is what you'll see me often do. So I pull out at the last moment. Same with those forces over here. It's going to pull these guys into the center. He really shouldn't be sending those guys here. It basically messes up his units. So when they're going to fire, they're going to be firing, you know, over their men. It's going to screw up their shots, and it's going to allow my return fire to basically do a lot of damage to his guys. 2 of his cavalry are going to be drawn into the center. He decides to do an about face, but I'm going to countercharge with, again, my light cav. I don't really care if they lose too many men. If I can catch his men and basically put them at the mercy of my crossbowmen, who are now in perfect position. His own peasant crossbowmen, because I'm charging forward and they're on skirmisher mode, the AI is making them do all sorts of funny stuff. My guys are basically having free reign to fire off volleys. Here we go, point blank right into his cav. Chewing into his really heavy cav, so this turtle is working really well. And then I charge in with my other sort of disposable cav into this mix. I was able to knock out some of his militia guys, rout those, so I'm routing his front, and at the same time just forcing the chaos to continue. And then pushing forward with this unit here, and at the same time, my heavy guys, unmolested. They're staying in the back. Pull these guys back here. You can see the chaos I've created in his lines, and he really wants to retaliate, but he can't just because of where I've positioned my crossbowmen. The main problem I'm having here is because I have units in front of this, the AI basically avoids you from shooting directly over your head like archers might. They're going to shoot straight up ahead. So you can only really get off some straight shots and more effective shots if there's a straight up gap here. So I'm going to push my crossbowmen a little bit forward. Anyways, I was able to catch some of his feudal knights with my own feudal knights. He's going to decide to countercharge. He's sending in some of his javelin men. That's a good move. And yep, he learned from his last battle. He's sending in basically a mix of all types of units. I'm going to go ahead and try and finish these guys off. Get in another strike and then pull back. You can see my peasant crossbowmen continuing to land shots on his guys. And he's going to go ahead and decide to pull back because he has these javelin men here. These guys are good at armor piercing. So my opponent was thinking correctly. You know, he gets his skirmishers up close. He's going to deal death to me. But I decide to retreat and again leave my sergeant spearmen to intercept and allow my guys to pull back. At the same time, continue to get off shots. In the center here, I decide, as I said earlier, to move my crossbowmen forward and just continue to pick off at his men. The meat of my turtle is still alive, and I'm just picking off at his guys. And instead of targeting his crossbowmen, I'm going to charge his dismounted knights and various other high value units. I know if I can get rid of those guys, then it's going to be to my advantage. Again, a big mix over on this side. He's trying to start committing this blob, but he's really disorganized. It's going to allow my cav to basically take out his cavalry who are too far exposed. My own cav here is going to keep my crossbowmen alive. And then this blob is just, it's biting its own. At this point, I was kind of going to let these guys do their thing. I didn't want to break this tight knot because I knew even if I lost those guys, this was still enough forces to stay alive. And I'm just drawing out this fight, you know. I want to get all these shots into his men. Dismounted feudal knights are losing rows and rows. Same with his spear militia. And look at this. His return fire is basically going into a big blob of armored guys. So he's doing no damage whatsoever to my heavy guys. I pull out with my cav. And basically what he's left with is the option to just chase my crossbowmen. I lost a decent amount of cav and also some of my spearmen. But now he's got disorganized javelin men in the middle who are a perfect target for a cavalry strike right through here. He has his own spear militia. So I'm going to have to be a little wary, but with the perfect timing, I should be able to take those guys out. And he's chasing after my archers. He's getting way, way, way too exposed. And that's going to allow me to come in through here. Never allow your cav to get this exposed. So, you know, he went for a little bit of the greedy move. And that's going to allow me to finish off his men without having enough support. And then, as he sends his spearmen to try and support this unit, that's where I'm going to charge in with my other cavalry into the backs of these guys and really start routing those men. Meanwhile, he's continuing to try and pour on the fire, but he really has no good targets. Yes, he can sort of chip away at my crossbowmen, but he'd really like to take out my guys in the back, but they're chilling at a safe distance, and any of his cav basically can't get around the flanks. There's spearmen all the way around, and I decided to just draw these guys out, better to make them into a line. I'm going to pull back again to my turtle, and he's trying to think about engaging this, but in his hesitation, I'm going to countercharge and then throw in my spearmen. So that's, the turtle working as efficiently as possible. Over here, I was able to chase off his cavalry, save my crossbowmen in the meantime, and you can see how many units he has here. Basically 4 units, just distracted from the main battle. His own cav basically lost a lot of men in that engagement, and he even lost his general in that fight. So I was able to get a lot of bang for my buck. My cavalry militia, who should be, losing to these feudal knights, are going to end up winning just because of the casualties I was able to force upon his men. Continuing to get on the shots. These crossbowmen actually have ridiculous amounts of ammo. I didn't know this, but in Medieval 2, you have a ton of ammo. So these guys are basically not going to run out of ammo, so I figured I'd maximize that and just hold these units back for the time being. Continue to collapse on his guys. My cavalry basically bypassed his foot units and just mopping up the rest of his cav. I'm going to go ahead and finish off his javelin men. And I'm going to fall back to these units here. So my armored sergeant spearmen are basically the rallying point for my archers and my cavalry. He's going to decide that this is a futile effort, and he's going to go ahead and push back over here. The majority of his force has been reduced. I basically destroyed his feudal knights. I'm finishing off his spear militia. And basically all he has next is this raggedy line of feudal knights here, very tattered. And you can see his men trying to reform. He has a lot of these crossbowmen, but he's not really using them effectively, mostly because look at how they're firing. Because they're behind these units, they're going to have to fire up over them, whereas I put my guys in front and they get direct lines of fire on my opponent. And I still have my cavalry wing, which can deal decisive strikes. But yeah, look at this. It's kind of goofy when they have to shoot shots from above, but some of them are actually going to land. Or a little bit at least. So it's going to force his flank back. There we go. I decide that the tortoise is now going to start pushing forward. So you'll see me push this unit forward. They're going to be going up once I've done enough damage. And that's going to be very, very frightening to my opponent, because look at this. Armored sergeants, and then especially these dismounted feudal knights. And these guys will basically have you fight to the death. Really cool with the clock and everything. Or not the clock, the bell. So soon will be the death toll for my opponent. So we're going to start sounding that, and we're going to start pushing forward. He's consolidated his men, so I'm going to push forward with my peasant crossbowmen. I decide that I want to target his knights here. No need letting him have too many men left alive. So I'm going to start targeting those guys and targeting some of the more audacious men who start moving forward. So they're going to be charging me. I'm going to get some shots off against them. Look at this. That's what happens when you get your guys in a big line. And yes, they're going to get a charge against me, but they're going to go ahead and basically rout just because of the casualties they sustain, and then this fresh unit coming in from the back. So at this point, my cav are moving up on that flank and continuing to get off shots. His cav are going to try and save the day, and his archers are going to do a pretty good amount of damage, but again, these are disposable units that I throw in the front. I'm wasting those guys as much as possible. And then my crossbowmen see some juicy nobility that they can get their crossbow sights on. So I'm going to be taking out those guys. So he's wasting the remainder of his nobility against some really cheap units, fodder units. And he's going to be getting basically a face full of bolts for his troubles. And again, he's continuing to just focus fire on these peasant crossbowmen. It's really not what he should be doing. He should really be focusing on some of my meteor units, because they're just waiting. And soon this turtle will charge forward. Not charge, but roll its way steadily forward. And you'll see the fear that gives my opponent. So he's fighting a downwards fight. He's pulled back sensibly. Most of his guys, his javelin men, I think they're... Oh no, I routed all his javelin men. Nope, they're up here actually. So I'm going to be doing a lot to try and fight off my guys right here. Now he's getting this direct fire that he's always wanted. But again, it's against the wrong men. And I'm going to push these guys forward. Just try and intimidate him, see how he's going to react. And yeah, I'm just kind of trying to use up all my ammo. And you can see how they're repositioning. I can't believe these guys are still alive after all this time. Yeah, they've lost a lot of men, but they've also dealt a lot of death for the opponent. I'm going to continue to pick off his men. Here he goes. With these genites, throw a couple spears at my men, and yep, that's what they get. So these guys are soaking up the fire, and I'm not quite sure what I was waiting for at this point. I just wanted to see how much damage I could do with my crossbowmen, use them to their most. So I could probably seize the day, which is what you're going to see me doing here, with the standards rolling out in front, and then here you can see my eager knights. They're tired of watching my opponent basically get chipped away due to the lack of maybe noble fighting. So they decide they're going to get their piece of the action. They're going to charge forward on all fronts, backed up with some of my cav. So an all-in-one attack. Crossbowmen are going to continue to lay on the fire, but basically the standards are going to be moving forward. And my opponent is kind of at a loss. He's going to pull back to these forces here, these dismounted knights, and I'm going to catch them basically with their pants down. They're going to be falling back, and he's got really no core to fall back to. So you guys is going to rally some of his cav. They're going to try and rally them and keep them from falling back. But one of these units gets a little too exposed, and that's why I decide to target them. So basically anyone who tries to withstand the push of Venice is going to get nailed to the ground. And this is slowly going to be sort of the benchmark of my advance, and I'm trying to just get him to run away in fear of this unit. I haven't been able to use this really in any battle. I just threw it in here because I thought it'd be cool for the turtle approach that I decided to do. But I wonder how it would stand up if I allowed my opponent to come and fight me. Probably pretty well, but he's mostly going to be here just to lead the charge. And now all my men are going to be going forward. Some of my dismounted knights had enough of waiting, so here we go. They're going to be fighting his own dismounted knights, and basically the resistance is futile. All out charge, and the commentator is actually, yep, there you go. My opponent admitted defeat, seeing how I had all of these units coming through the front, and then also my cavalry in the back. So I hope this was a good battle. I hope you enjoyed this series. I hope it taught you a bit about how you can deploy your units and sort of how to handle combat. And yeah, thanks to my opponent. It was a great series of battles, and I hope to see you all online. See you next time.